Okay.
Yeah, we are live.
All right, great. Can you see my screen? Because
No, you will have to share your screen, Linda. You haven't shared your screen yet.
I actually have tried to. For some reason, it's not letting me share my screen. Do you want me to send you the slides or just give the presentation without the slides? It's not letting me share.
What happens when you click on share and there's this third option, share screen?
I did that. I click on share screen and it's not working. It says share screen, and then nothing happens.
Okay, you can probably email me the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, but we are live right now, so maybe you can.
I'll do that really quickly, and
Yeah.
then I'm going to get going because I don't want to keep our audience waiting. Okay, folks, I want to thank you very much for joining me. I apologize for the glitch, but these things sometimes happen. Let's get started here. First of all, thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you to GMAT Club and to Abhijit for hosting me, and I'm accepted on this for this webinar. And we're going to discuss get accepted in 2023. Make the B schools love you. I guess Valentine's Day, if for those of you in the United States and Europe, is coming up. It's a theme, a holiday that's focused on love in a couple of weeks. So the theme kind of is timely. Now, what I'd like you to do, if you could, in the comments window, just let me know. Thank you. You're all being very gracious. I appreciate that. I've sent the slides to Abhijit, and hopefully he'll be able to get them up and advance them as we go. But in the meantime, could you tell me a little bit about yourself, specifically in the comments window? Let me know where you're located, city and state if you're in the United States, city and country if you're outside the United States. Just really quick. Hopefully in the meantime, the slides will get there. Anybody want to let me know where you're located in the comment window? Delhi, Gurgaon, I apologize if I mispronounced the place, Jaipur, Pune, Sao Paulo, India, Delhi, Jaipur, Noida, Lima, Peru, Morocco, Rabat, Morocco. Wonderful. Rome, Italy. Woo, really international crowd here today. Milan, Italy, Nepal, Hyderabad, Kathmandu. Wonderful. Los Angeles. Oh, a neighbor. I'm in Los Angeles too, Blake. Okay. So we have an international audience. Paris, France. Woo, Cairo. Welcome from near and far. Okay. I love it. I always get a kick out of the international nature of the GMAT Club's audiences. And could you also indicate if you're a first-time applicant or a reapplicant for this upcoming cycle? Again, in the comments windows, just really quick. I'm going to try and get a sense of it. Reapplicant or first-time applicant? Hi, neighbor. Yeah. Okay. First. All right. First. I kind of suspected that we'd get mostly first. All right. But reapplicants, if there are any reapplicants here, you're also welcome. I think this will still be very helpful to you. So, I see the slides are up. Okay, great. Thank you, Abhijit. A little about me. You can advance the next slide. I founded Accepted, which is one of the oldest admissions consultancies, graduate admissions consultancies on the web, or I think in existence actually, in 1994. So I've been doing this for over a quarter of a century. I also co-founded the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants and served as its first president. I co-authored MBA Admissions for Smarties. I'm quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Poets and Quants, Business Week, Business Because, U.S. News, and many other media on MBA admissions. And I've been a member of the GMAT Club since April 2003. So I guess I'm also approaching 20 years on that anniversary. Not quite there yet, though. We have two gifts for today's event. One is the MBA timeline, and I'd suggest that you download these tools after the webinar so you don't miss any part of the webinar. And you can access that at accepted.com or www.accepted.com/MBA timeline, TIMELINE. And then the second one, next one is a quiz, and you can access that. It's Are You Ready to Apply? And you can access that at www.accepted.com/MBA-quiz, QUIZ. Again, that's www.accepted.com/MBA-quiz. And the quiz is an assessment tool and also will give you additional tools that can help you with any weaknesses that you may have. And most of us do have some, so don't worry about that. Okay? Thank you for posting those URLs. Now, I got a call early this month from someone, let's call him Joe, who wanted an MBA, and he only wanted to attend a few elite programs. That's not unusual. How many of you would like to attend an elite MBA program? Just type yes or no in the comments window. That's fine with me. He wanted, in my opinion, as to his chances and how we could help him. And he said, please be honest. Don't worry about hurting my feelings. I assured him I would be honest and direct. Okay, I see the yeses are coming in now. Yeah, who wouldn't? Exactly. All right. But he was limiting himself to, he was limiting himself to the top programs. And he had a specific solid goal, but he also had a low GPA for his target schools. He hadn't yet taken the test, was thinking of seeking a waiver. And he assumed that if he did take the test, a 700 GMAT or the equivalent in GRE would be enough for a top 15 program. Maybe even a top 7 program, the fabled M7. He did have impressive experience, but it was a little bit on the technical side and a little bit on the low side. And he really wanted to start in September 2023. In other words, he really wanted to apply this cycle. He didn't want to risk rejection and reapplication, and he did not want to go to a lower ranked school. We talked and I listened, and then I explained to him that for the schools he was aiming for, he really needs a higher GMAT. He would also be wise to move into a more business-related role if he could. At first, he was a little defensive, and he said, "You mean I won't get in?" And I said, "No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have some strengths and some weaknesses, and you need to recognize them. You need to recognize those weaknesses, mitigate or eliminate them, and then highlight your strengths through the application." We talked some more, and by the end of the call, he was very appreciative of my advice and candor. He was no longer defensive, and he promised that he'd get back to me after his test. I realized that in this call, like hundreds of others that I've had, probably thousands, over my 27 years as admissions consultant and owner of Accepted, he was really asking, how can I make business schools love me? Again, Valentine's Day is coming up for those of you familiar with that holiday. How can I make them want me? How can I get in? Now, I've developed a 5-part framework that you can use as you go through the admissions process. And I know it's a grueling, demanding process. I went through it myself many, many years ago. And also I've gone through it again and again with thousands of clients over the last 27, 28 years. But following this plan and using this framework will help you get into the best schools for you and ultimately pursue the dream career that is the whole reason you want an MBA. So for the rest of this webinar, I'm going to go through the plan, and I think the first part of it is on your screen now. And ultimately, and I'm going to give you the 5-part framework as well as a few caveats and warnings about rabbit holes that you really don't want to go down. You're not going to get in by waving a magic wand, and a dab of makeup won't do it. But substance means a competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. Your overriding aim is to show that you belong in their program, and they will then love you. And if they love you, they're very likely to accept you when you apply in 2022, 2023. Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty. How do you show you belong? How do you show that you shouldn't end up in the reject pile? Well, the first one, as you know, you're advancing the slides a little bit too fast, Abhijit. The first one is demonstrate you can do the in-class work in Excel. And the easiest way to do so is through your undergrad transcript and test score. You want to be at or above averages for accepted clients, ideally for both the grades and test scores. If not, how can you make schools love you with below average grades? Please advance the slide. Realize that averages are what they are because some were accepted with below average stats. Also realize that the farther away you are below that average, and if both grades and test scores are below average, the less likely it is that you can effectively demonstrate you can do the work and compete with your or I shouldn't say even compete, keep up with your fellow students. How can you convince them if, let's say, you weren't motivated as an undergrad, that you really are capable of more than your GPA would suggest? Well, take business-rated classes and earn A's in them if you have a problematic GPA. And you can do so using, right, I see that Honest Bishop messed up his undergrad GPA. So this is one way that you can address it. Take classes now, and there is time to enroll in spring semester. There's time to enroll in spring quarter, summer courses. There's also the option of something like HBS Online or MBA Math. One of the things, I know we have a very international audience today. You don't have to be in the United States or even in a physical classroom, whether it's in India or the United States or Lima, Peru, or Egypt or wherever you folks are located. You can take classes online. You can also consider earning a certificate like the CFA. If your quant skills are weak, please advance Abhijit. You're the proverbial poet, but your grades are good. Consider something like, again, MBAmath.com or quant courses at a local college. You could take statistics for business, calculus, if you have and remember the prerequisites, economics 1, accounting 1. You could also consider MOOCs if your overall grades are good and you just want to beef up your quant skills. And then there's, of course, the test score. Please advance. A high test score can mitigate low GPA and really show again or reinforce the argument that you're making that you are capable of more than your undergrad GPA indicates. For the top 10, you want to be ideally at the 80th percentile in both your quant and verbal. If not, you may want to consider a retake, especially if you're trying to mitigate the impact of a low GPA. If you're not sure whether to retake or not, please advance. Please see either of the two URLs on the screen. One is the GMAT score, the low scores retaking the strategies for success, which is a webinar. And then the other one, I can't even see exactly what it is right now on the screen, but it's also related to improving or dealing with a low GMAT score, or if you're not sure whether you should retake or not. In general, your academic ability, your ability to do the work in Excel, which is the first part of the framework, is evident in your transcript and test scores, the seemingly objective elements of the application. Joe, going back to Joe, couldn't really make the case that he could do the work in Excel. Again, his GPA was a little on the low side, and he was trying to avoid taking the test. So by the end of our call, he had decided to take the test and really prepare for it because he recognized that he had to have a really solid GMAT score if he wanted to apply the schools that he was aiming to. If he was willing to go a little bit lower down in the rankings, then his GPA probably would have been competitive, and he might have been able to waive the test or apply with a 700. His targets had average GMAT scores of 725 plus, and his favorite was north of 730. I have a question. Would you prefer that I just plow through the slides and then take questions at the end, or take questions as we go? PB is asking me if it's better if you take a GMAT or a GRE. It's better that you take the test you're going to do the best on. I would suggest if you're not sure, take a practice exam at both and see where you do better and then decide. Questions as we go. Questions later sounds efficient. At the end. Oh boy, I'm getting mixed opinions here. At the end. All right, we're going to wait for the end because I think that's the majority. Okay. But you can jot your questions down and then ask at the end. All right, part 2. So, second part 2 of the framework. Have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from the schools that you are applying to, and also have a good idea how you intend to use that MBA. Joe did have a clear goal, and that was one of his strengths. What are your short-term and long-term goals? You can advance the slides, please. What do you want to do? Not study. And in what industry would you like to work after you earn your MBA? That is a short-term post-MBA goal. It's function plus industry. Okay, let's wait with the bridge slide. Hold on a second. Keep it where the goal was. Okay. And again, I want to emphasize that your short-term goal is not the same as what you want to study. It's what do you want to do. All right, you may want to study marketing, but you might want to be a brand manager. And in what industry would you like to work after you earn your MBA? There may also be a geographic element to your goal. You might want to work on Wall Street. You might want to work in the city of London. You might want to work in Silicon Valley. You might want to stay in India or wherever you live, or short-term work in the United States and then go back to wherever you're from. Some schools also ask about long-term goals, which can be fuzzier and show options. And it's good if you have such a motivation. There might be a greater vision, or what Cindy Tokamitsu, an accepted consultant for also the last 25, almost 30 years, calls goals plus. Ask them to share. And these goals plus can be some greater good, right? You want to contribute to society in some specific way. Not I want to make the world a better place, because that's lovely, it's noble, but it's also fairly meaningless. How do you intend to make the world a better place? Do you want to target food insufficiency through supply chain management? Do you want to address income inequality or diversity, equity, and inclusion? If you have, or do you want to improve healthcare delivery? Or do you want to improve the consulting industry so it's more democratized and more accessible to people, to small businesses? There can be various goals that you have. Make sure they're real and specific. And again, you don't have to have that part of it. For many schools, a clear goal is as much a requirement of admission as work experience. Chicago Booth, for example, has as two of its sub-criteria for admission, quote, a sense of personal direction, close quote, and again, quoting, realistic expectations for the MBA. And business schools, as the slide suggests, should be able to connect where you've been and what you want to do with the school's program, career strengths, and extracurricular opportunities. So where you are today, where you want to be, the MBA is the bridge. So that's the second part of the framework, a clear, realistic goal. Let's move on to the third part. Show that you share the school's values. Now, could you in the comment window tell me what are some of the values that schools have? What are some of the things that business schools value? We've talked about academic excellence, okay? We've talked about a clear goal. But what are some other things? Diversity, collaboration, good. Good, very good. Excellence, okay. That's very, very broad. Integrity, absolutely. Question the status quo, that's certainly Berkeley Haas's value, absolutely. Sustainability, yeah. Leadership, Devendra, that's what I was looking for. Impact, very good, Shirag. Diversity, that's true, but that's, yeah. Okay. Let's look at some of the things that schools say they value. Okay. So, for example, Harvard, advance the slide, there we go, values and states very clearly it values a habit of leadership, capacity for intellectual growth, not just test taking. That's my addition to not just test taking, and engaged community citizenship, which would tie into leadership and responsibility. Santosh, good. Stanford, its motto is change lives, change organizations, change the world. Clearly, it values people who are change agents. And somebody else said impactful. Shirag. Haas has its 4 defining principles, which one of you quoted, and they are question the status quo, confidence without attitude, students always, beyond yourself. Now, when you present yourself in your application, I want to caution you against just mouthing these phrases, spitting back the school's websites, and really showing that you share those values. The former, well, frankly, that's just putting lipstick on a pig, and it's not pretty. But examples in your essays, bullet points in your resume, items in your activity history, letters of recommendation, and your responses to interview questions must all demonstrate the qualities that the school you're applying to or interviewing at really values. So, what I'd like you to do now for yourself is just grab a piece of paper or open a file, whatever works, and jot down ways in which you could demonstrate the qualities that some of the schools value. Now, all the schools value leadership. So let's pick on leadership for the moment. When have you demonstrated leadership? Another one, as Shirag said, is impact. And I think some others, but I don't have the entire chat window available at the moment. When have you shown impact? Just jot it down for yourself. We're not going to do that in the chat window because I do want to get to your questions. This is for yourself so that you're already starting your applications this morning, right? When have you shown those qualities? Because those are the things that you're going to want to highlight in your essays, your resume, the activity descriptions, etc. And then you know what? You don't have to spit back phrases at all. Another thing I want to warn you about is a focus on the rankings. If you focus on the rankings, you're going to obscure this fit aspect of admissions. And that could result in you choosing less than optimal schools because you're so focused on the rankings that you're not really evaluating where you're likely to get accepted. And there might be schools that are really, really supportive of your specific goals where you'd be happy to attend, they'd be happy to want you, but you're so focused on the rankings that you don't get in. You waste time and money applying to programs that you're not qualified for, or you're so focused on the rankings that you don't really research the schools, and then it's hard for you to show fit even at the top programs where you do belong. And you have to remember that the schools have lots and lots of applicants, and they can be choosy. Now, Joe was very focused on rankings in my call. He didn't know any of the school's stated or unstated values. You need to know both in order to choose the most appropriate schools for you, and then in order to convince them that you belong. You belong on their campus. You're just not yet paying tuition. Okay, let's keep going. So that's the third element of the framework, right? Know the school's value and be able to demonstrate that you share them. The fourth one, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to class discussions and teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud. Well, if the third one, showing fit, is about belonging, the fourth one is about showing that you're going to make a difference, that you're going to contribute something distinctive as an individual. The best way to show that you're going to reveal in the future is to show that you've done so in the past, that you have a habit of contribution, a habit of impact, because past behavior predicts future behavior. So if you can reveal a habit of contribution, impact, leadership through your application, then you're going to be showing that you are likely to contribute in the future. Just hold on that slide for a second. And you have to ask yourself, no, Okay. Do you have the work experience quantitatively and qualitatively that will allow you to contribute in class? So uh, quantitatively competitive work experience is roughly 3 to 8 years. 5 years seems to be, the sweet spot, but 3 to 8 is fine, is the range. Qualitatively competitive work experience shows progression on the job, impact, leadership, and yes, the ability to stand out. Now, there's also, don't advance, there's also a way to show that you're going to stand out just in the way you present yourself. If you use specific myself. Okay, here we go. If you focus on specifics, those specifics will allow you to very naturally and organically stand out. Those specifics will reveal you to be the unique individual that you truly are. So Duke has its list of 25 random things. Don't list on in that essay everything that's likely to be shared by your competition. Share what's more distinctive about you. How are you going to describe? Well, let's go back for a second, please. In addition, how are you going to describe your work experience or your major non-professional commitments? Are you going to say, I'm an engineer? I bet a lot of you could raise your hand with that one. But if I asked how many of you are transportation engineers, it'd be very few. Are you a consultant? There's probably a good group of you that are consultants. But how many of you are healthcare consultants? Many fewer. Have you volunteered in college or since? I bet if I asked that question, 80, 90% of you would say yes. But how many of you founded a new organization to address a specific need in your community? However you define your community, and be specific about what community you found an organization for. Then already, just in the way you describe what you do, you will be differentiating yourself and showing that you have something unique, some unique experience to bring to your class. Now, let's listen to Derek Bolton's advice or perspective on the MBA admissions process. Please advance the slide. In a GMAT article that he wrote years ago, he is the former head of admissions at Stanford Graduate School of Business, and he was in that position, I think, for 10 or more years. But I love this article, and I've been quoting it for years. He described admissions as a two-step process. And number one is evaluation, determining the qualified, and there are always too many qualified applicants at a school like Stanford, which means that they reject many qualified applicants. The second part of the process, though, which is the one you see on your screen, is selection, and that is crafting a class determining which candidates to admit among those evaluated as qualified. And that means that while test scores and GPA will get you to the threshold, they're not going to get you over the door, in the door. They're not enough. They're necessary but insufficient for admissions. You need the other elements, right? You need the clear goal. You need to show fit. You need to show this ability to contribute, in particular, to advance among those as evaluated as highly qualified. Now, this introduces a very subjective element in the admissions process. And the implication from the selection part of the process is that the school has no reason to admit someone without something distinctive to contribute or someone lacking a history of initiative, a record of past impact and contribution. Now, the fifth element in the framework is reveal attributes that the business schools value. What are some traits that business schools are looking for? We've already touched a little bit on them, but what are some more? If you could, anybody want to say in the chat window, or I'm just gonna. No, Srikanth. There are plenty of Indians and Chinese. Leadership, excellent. Excellent. Leadership capability. Somebody else, and when I asked a similar question earlier, said collaboration, collaborative ability, good. Honesty and applications, absolutely. Integrity is very important. Initiative, teamwork skills. These traits should come through in the stories you tell in your essays, the examples the examples provided by your recommenders, and the answers that you give in your interviews. Jason, again, I apologize if I mispronounce names. Ability to adapt into changing environment, that's definitely of growing importance. Resilience, Valeria, excellent. All very important. Leadership is absolutely critical, especially for the top programs. And other traits that are valued among those that you mentioned, I've already mentioned, analytical ability is also something valued. Global perspective, ability to work with people from different cultures, curiosity. And please advance the slide. In selecting the examples in your essays and interviews, choose those examples, experiences, and anecdotes that answer the question, reveal these traits, most of which are also reflected in MBA values in one way or another. And this, again, will also come through in your letters of rec and your resume. Now, let's go back to your goal in submitting an application. Show that you belong in their program. And we're going to have a little bit of a contest here, okay? What is the first thing that will make business schools love you in the chat window? What is the first part of the 5-part framework? The ability to show that you can do the work. No, those are all later. Okay, let's go through them. Let's go through them right now. All right. What is the first thing that will make? Can you advance the slide, please? Okay. Let's go through them. 1, present the academic credentials that show you can do the work and excel. 2, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from the particular school that you're applying to and how you intend to use it. 3, show that you share the school's values. 4, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to class discussions and teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud. And then 5, reveal the personality traits that business schools value, which we've gone over, and you're listening here, right? Leadership, teamwork, initiative, integrity. And these were the steps that I was recommending to Joe when I spoke to him. These are the steps that we recommend to our clients, to all MBA applicants. Final word of advice from me, which is a little bit outside the framework, but I think very important for you folks to hear as you embark on this journey. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. You can advance the slide, please. Don't try to craft, fake, or fool. The best presentation of you, please advance the slide, is an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 5 things that will make business schools love you and will help you get accepted this next cycle. Okay, so far, what was in the chat window, please? So far, what was the most valuable concept, piece of advice, or bit of information that you received from this webinar? In the chat window, please. What was the most valuable concept, piece of advice, or bit of information that you received from this webinar? Articulate your application at every stage from CV to essay. Don't embellish your application. Leadership, I come from academic research background, is always a lone path. Or you'll get caught, that's true. Leadership, I come from academic research background, it is always a lone path. There are ways to deal with that. It's a little harder, but there are ways to deal with it. There can be thought leadership. Our values and the B School's values should match. Great. To be realistic and understand the school, then apply rather than aiming for the rank. Great, Devendra, you just made my day. How to make the schools love you. Fantastic. How to write my essay. not focus on the top 10 schools. I would say don't focus exclusively on the top 10 schools unless, again, I don't know your background, Valeria. Traits we have to introspect to get to a perfect showcase. Good, wonderful. You're here because you'd like to apply successfully, avoid rejection, start your MBA in 2023, and then launch that dream career. Perhaps you're looking for the magic recipe and you've gotten the 5 key ingredients. But how do you mix them? How long do you bake them and cook them for? For that, you need an experienced, accepted professional by your side. The do-it-yourself approach could result in a costly and less than optimal outcome. If you work with Accepted, please advance the slide, you will find that mentor, a seasoned professional who wants to help you propel your career forward via the best MBA that supports your goals. Now, I started the webinar with a story of Joe, whom I advised in a brief preliminary call. He was thrilled to have found a mentor to guide him through the process. However, I would also like to share the story of Sally, who hired Accepted to work with her. Sally was an athlete who had played top women's college sports and even turned pro. And while that experience gave her discipline, teamwork, and leadership, it did not allow her to earn above average grades. It also wasn't classic business experience. And somehow, her GMAT was distinctly below average for the elite program she was applying to, and she was applying to elite programs. However, she worked with an Accepted consultant who helped her demonstrate she could do the in-class work, portray her strengths, and show fit. She got into one of those elite programs and is now pursuing a career that many of you would give your eye teeth for. We'd love to help you as we help Sally and the many Joes who have sought our assistance. If you would like an experienced consultant to help you achieve your professional dreams, get Accepted. Please advance the slide. Explore our services. You can start with a small investment of a 1-hour consultation, or decide you want comprehensive assistance with multiple applications and just about everything in between. But the cost of exploring our services is zero. Check them out. Again, the URL is on the screen, and Abhijit just posted it, www.accepted.com/MBA/services. And remember, the magic of individual consulting is helping you convince the school that you and it are a perfect fit. And just as a reminder, for those of you not yet ready to engage with a consultant, please take advantage of these free or low-cost resources, and they're on your screen now. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions. I know there are a lot, so let's... Okay, Srikant's asked, tried reaching out to many alumni of top B schools, did not get a positive response. How can we reach out to alumni to understand if we are for a particular school? You might do better getting in touch with current students, student ambassadors. I think they would probably be more open to the outreach. And many schools have students who are more than happy to respond to questions. So the other thing is to contact the admissions office and see if they can put you in touch with some students, or even alumni ask the schools directly. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Prachita asks, how does the admissions committee look at GPA for Indian chartered accountants, as passing itself is a challenge in such competitive courses? They're going to look at your GPA. For those of you with a low GPA, I addressed how to deal with a low GPA at accepted.com/137. That's www.accepted.com/137 or 137. It's a podcast devoted specifically to mitigating the impact of a low GPA. So passing the Indian Chartered exam definitely will help mitigate the impact of a low GPA, if that's what I'm assuming you're asking about. Obviously, a good, strong test score will also help. And then your work experience itself will help also. So they're not going to ignore the GPA, I think, which is possibly what you're asking, but they're going to look at it in context of later achievements. Okay, Mano also asked about compensating for a low GPA. I'd go to accept.com/137 to for a podcast devoted to that. You want to show evidence you can do the work. That's the best way to compensate. Provide context for the low GPA. It could have been immaturity, could have been a family crisis, illness. I don't know. You will work your way through school, whatever it is. Obviously, be honest about it. Do not make things up. That can really bite you. But and just straightforwardly take responsibility for substandard performance while also showing improved performance recently or more recently. And again, www.accept.com/137. All right, Honest Bishop writes, I'm really good at taking tests, but I haven't accomplished anything noteworthy at work at school. What can I do? Change it. You have to start doing something noteworthy. You can't go back to school, but you can both in community service contexts and at work start doing something that is noteworthy. And if your job doesn't give you opportunity to do something that noteworthy, I don't know where you're located, Honest Bishop, but certainly in the United States, there's a labor shortage. You can change jobs and give yourself hopefully get into a job that gives you greater opportunity for accomplishing something. Also, in the community service realm, most conservative community service organizations are desperate for volunteers who want to accomplish something, who are willing to take responsibility for an outcome and organize an event or work hard. So there are plenty of opportunities for you to accomplish great things in this world. And the only way to deal with that, as I said, is to change it. But I do appreciate your honesty and candor. All right. Is there a broad framework in which we have to structure our SOP? We have all kinds of advice pieces on writing your statement of purpose and your application essays on the site. And then if you go to www.accepted.com/MBA, you'll see different issues and resources for you. In general, it's hard to give a framework for that because you, first of all, have to respond to the question. Many times I'm asked, what are business schools looking for? Well, they're first of all looking for the answer to their question. That's most important. So make sure you answer the question. If you can answer the question in a way that engages them with a good opening hook or anecdote, a story, and then wrap it up with a conclusion that shows how the story relates to their question and answers their question. That's a possible framework. There are, that's about as specific as I'm going to get, because between different lengths that the essays have and the different questions, it's very, very hard to give a framework, but I hope that was helpful to you, Ritwich. Nidhi asked, does 7+ years disadvantage you for elite schools in the U.S.? No, it's going to depend what you did during those 7+ years. If you did the same thing for 7 years, that would be a disadvantage. If you grew, took on initiatives, took on more leadership, took on more responsibility, that will not be a disadvantage. Ashwarya, you said not to apply, only seek top 10 schools, and what are other factors to be considered for selecting schools? The most important factor in determining where to apply, well, there's two factors. One is which schools best support your goals. And the second is which school is most likely to accept you. So in a different presentation, I have a slide, and it's a Venn diagram. Basically, it's one circle are the schools that you want to attend that support your goals, and the other circle is the schools most likely to accept you. You want to apply to the schools that are in the intersecting portion where the two circles overlap. Okay? In terms of determining which schools best support your goals, obviously you first have to have a goal. And then I would strongly encourage you to look at their placement reports. Where do they place people? Do they place graduates in the companies and for the positions that you are most interested? What about the curriculum? Does the curriculum offer the kind of courses that you want to take? And then are there extracurricular activities that support your goal, that are going to help you do what you want to do. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Thank you for the question. I hope that answered it. Joseph, when schools are asking for the greatest achievement, is it always work-related? No. It doesn't have to be work-related. Okay, just see Honest Bishop's GRE and GMAT score. Those are great scores, and that'll definitely help you get in. At elite programs, which those scores would qualify you for, I would still stick with my advice. It is possible that lower ranked scores would accept you without impressive achievements and those scores. Tim asked, what would be the acceptable GMAT score? It depends where you're applying. When to take the GMAT. So if you haven't taken the GMAT now, again, that's something that actually is addressed on the timeline here. And also that I will be addressing in a webinar I'm going to give at Accepted next month. So if you sign up for any of the other resources that have, you'll also get an invitation to that webinar. In terms of right now, when I would suggest you take it, prepare for it, let's say for 3 months, 4 months intensively. It's now January. That would have you taking it in May. And I think that's a great time to take it. Ideally, you want to take it before the applications come out. And this is the ideal. And you usually 3 or 4 months of prep is good. It depends how much you prep and how much and what score you want to get and where you start at. So that's just again a very, very fuzzy rule of thumb. But I would my ideal is that you have your test score by late spring so that you know exactly what it is and you can start deciding with that score in hand where you want to apply. Okay. And then the applications come out over the summer. You can start working on your applications over the summer and go from there. Let's see. Alvin asked, I don't have any volunteer experience. If I volunteer with an organization now, will it count or look genuine? Well, Alvin, did you, I don't know if I don't have any, it'll look genuine. It just will look short in comparison to some of your competition. I still would encourage you to do so because you don't know how this application cycle is going to go. If you were to start volunteering in February, by August, you would have 6 months of volunteering. By the time you interview, you'd have 8 months. By the time you would potentially get waitlisted, it would be almost a year. And you should be able to show some impact and commitment in that period of time. So I would encourage you to start, make a commitment, take on some responsibility, and go for it. Don't let the fact that you haven't done so to date be an excuse for not starting it now. All right, Laurent asks, you're very welcome, first of all. Is it a problem if a candidate moved from company to company every 2 years in his career? To be more precise, each role was more senior than the previous. As long as you were increasing responsibilities, and I would say if you moved every year, it would start to get a little suspicious, but every 2 years isn't really a problem, as long as your responsibilities were going up. How to gauge whether each school is per our interest? Again, look at placement, look at the curriculum, look at extracurricular activities. I think I remember that you're in India, so perhaps visiting the schools isn't practical. Attend their events. That's one way. If you can, interact with current students. Many of them have student ambassadors. You can seek to speak to people from your location. You can seek to speak to people who have your career path, have a similar career path in mind, and ask them, how are they feeling about it? Do they feel supported? Do they feel helped? Ask to speak to alumnus, as somebody else mentioned earlier, who's in your field, and see what they say about the different schools. You can do a lot of research remotely at this point. then should I join an NGO to improve my profile? Joining is not really the same as having significant impact. If you were to, again, taking on responsibility for a not-for-profit in some role, whether it's a fundraiser, tutoring, I don't know, there's all different ways, an initiative that you see a need for, they would all make a difference. Okay, Dixon asks, I have experience in running a business for the past 4 years, no experience in working for some firm. Will it go against me or in favor while applying? It depends what your business has done for the last 4 years. How big is it? How many people have you managed? Has it grown? Has it shrunk? What challenges have you overcome? It depends a lot on how you present it. Certainly, if you grew a business for the last 4 years and you're managing people and negotiating deals and planning and strategy, etc., that will help you. And the fact that you have not worked for somebody else will not be an issue. Again, what you've done and how you present it is going to make the difference. Good question. Aditya asks, how do European schools differ from U.S. schools? Okay, this is in very broad strokes. European schools tend to be more international. They have, U.S. schools are about, depending upon the school, 25-30% non-U.S. citizens, maybe a little more at this point. Some are as high as 40%, but European schools are maybe 80% non-citizens of their country. It depends on the school and etc. But in general, that's probably the biggest difference. U.S. schools will require knowledge of English. European schools may require 2 or 3 languages in addition to, INSEAD requires 3 languages, including English. So again, those are some of the big differences. There is a more multicultural, multinational, I don't mean the sense of multinational corporation, but there's a more global perspective, I think, at the European schools, just because there's so many more different cultures represented. That's one of the differences. Obviously, in the United States is a big country. It is not monolithic. There are regional differences. There are ethnic differences within the United States, but it's not the same as Europe. Differences are much greater in Europe. You're very welcome, Srikant. Another good question from Honest Bishop. You're welcome, Ritwidge. Is it worth getting a specialized MBA like in business analytics or quantitative finance rather than a general MBA? I think it depends on your goals. Again, the MBA is not a trophy that you put on your shelf and you're done with. It is a means to an end, and that end is what you want to do later in life. So if you want to do a deep dive into business analytics, then you can get a master's in business analytics, or you can get an MBA, which will give you an education in broader business and in management, and do a concentration in business analytics. So your dive won't be quite as deep, but you'll have the breadth of an MBA. On the other hand, if you want to get a highly technical, quantitative education in finance, then go for a master's, an MFE, master's in financial engineering, or an MIF, a master's in finance. You won't get the general business knowledge, but you will get that very quantitative, technical, specialized education in finance. Okay. You're very welcome, Ritwidge, Nidhi. Okay, I answered Shantanu's question. You're welcome, Ashwarya. Okay, Shiv asks, I want to switch over after putting in 20 years service in the defense sector in India. He gives his qualifications. I would encourage you to look at an executive MBA, or perhaps, depending upon what you've done in the defense sector and what you want to do, a Sloan Fellows program, which would be the Sloan Fellows program at London Business School, the Sloan Fellows program at MIT Sloan, or the Stanford MSX program, which are all aimed at people in their late 30s and 40s. Now, again, it depends not just on your academic credentials, but on what you actually did in the defense sector. I think you would have a tough time being accepted to a full-time MBA. It's not impossible. It would depend a lot on your goals also, but I think it would be tough. We do have an article. I'll try and find it for you. I can post it if I find it. Of course, I'm not finding it right now. All right. If you go, let's see. And actually, I'm not finding it at the moment. Oh. Okay, here we go. I did find it. For those of you who are older, here is, I don't think I can post to you. All right. This is too long a URL. Abhijit, can I post to them? If not, I'll tell you what, I'm going to post it here. Maybe Abhijit will forward it to you. Okay? Because apparently I cannot post. All right. Okay, Blake asks, thank you, Abhijit. Appreciate that. That's for older MBA applicants. Are Asian males discriminated in test scores when it comes to MBA application? In other words, do I need to get a higher score than other applicants in order to get in? That's a tough question. In general, Asians tend to do better on the tests. So to a certain extent, there is an expectation that the Asian applicants, Indian, etc., Indian, Asian, Chinese, will get a higher score. I don't think it's discrimination in the sense, well, this kind of applicant needs to get this number and that kind of applicant needs to get that, X plus. But there is that certain expectation. So that's the reality. Okay. I realize that's somewhat of a wishy-washy answer, but that's how I see it. You're welcome, Honest Bishop. Aditi Gupta. I'm a team leader at ASEC and planning to go out for an internship. Okay, I think I wasn't being heard. Just to answer, Aditi, I'm not sure when my mic went out. I'm a team leader at ASEC and planning to go out for an internship abroad for a short term. Will it create a difference in my application? Yes, it's something that you can be proud of and you should include in your application. I'm not sure it's a big wow for your application. It shows international exposure, that's for sure. Thank you. You're welcome, Shiv. Let's see. Divyata asks, are UK MBAs such as HEC, Oxford? Well, HEC, I think, is in Paris. Oxford, comparatively easier to get into compared to US ones. It depends on the US ones. It depends on the UK ones. I don't think I can give an across-the-board answer there. What are some ways to compensate for a bad undergrad GPA? Is an absolute deal breaker, even with a great GMAT score and work experience for Europe and US both? No, it's not an absolute deal breaker. As I indicated earlier in the presentation, and also mentioned earlier in the Q&A, there are ways to deal with a low GPA. The causes of the GPA need to be addressed. You need to show evidence that you are not the same person you were as an undergrad, or that you've dealt with whatever issues you were dealing with as an undergrad and know how to perform today. So go to accept.com, or it's www.accept.com/137, and there's a whole podcast there. It's about 30 minutes in length on what you can do to deal with low GPA. It's called 5 A's for your low GPA. And I think I'm not familiar with that school. I think we're just about done, Abhijit, and out of time and out of questions. I think I've answered most questions. Right? In that case, I want to thank you all for your attendance. John, yes, depending upon everything else. I want to thank you all for your attendance, for your time, your attention, your questions, your answers. I want to thank Abhijit and GMAT Club for hosting, and have a great day. Good luck with your applications. If you would like assistance, guidance, please visit www.accept.com/MBA/services. We look forward to working with you. Take care, everybody.